One is she's part-time, she's 0.5, we share here with Stone. She was on board full-time, but unfortunately, there was a staff change, and she had to go back to 0.5 for us and 0.5 for Stone. Mr. Clerk?
So, Mr. Carrera, as far as ELLs, are there people on campus that can address those language needs of the diversity that you have?
Not to the extent of an ESL teacher. Okay. We can, but we're not doing a very good job because of the staff. So that's why we're looking for another ESL teacher.
Can I just, Mr. Carter, before you, so this past meeting in February, we approved a full-time ELL teacher, and that full-time position is going to go to RPA to address the needs of 30 kids.
So I was even thinking along the lines of a para that speaks another language, or any other kind of support personnel you might have within the school itself. Somebody that could maybe address, those languages that we really need help with.
Mr. Curry, we did have someone who spoke Spanish quite fluently. However, we just lost her because she matriculated to a charter school outside the district. So right now, we have no one that speaks Spanish.
So beside the ELL appropriation, could you see another area where you might want to target one other voice on campus? Would that be helpful?
We're hoping that the opening for the para that we have, the 2 para positions, we're going to see if we can have a bilingual para committee.
I hope
Talking Spanish and Portuguese.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that you can prioritize that as it happens with that idea.
Maybe.
How are you? Fine.
Just a question, a couple of questions. About how many kids, how many students are being referred a month to RPA? And the follow-up question, if you could, give us a little bit of the process on what you're getting, your process once the kids are now referred. What is the process like?
That number varies. It's a very fluid number. Sometimes we could have, in a given week, we could have 5. In a given week, we could have 30, depending on the timing. As we get closer to the end of their terms and middle of our trimester, those numbers fluctuate a great deal. When a student is referred to us, the first thing we do is we ask for the paperwork and what has the school done prior as far as strategies. And what we look at is to see if we can improve upon those strategies, okay? Or what other services they received and how we can improve on those services. Sometimes it's difficult to get the parent in, in a speedy fashion. There's resistance sometimes on the parent's part. However, after we meet with them and we explain what we do, how we do it, and why we do it, it seems the parents, most of the parents, I would say 90–95% of the parents get on board, understanding that we're going to take care of their SEL problem issues, or what other issues they have. We'll work on those issues first, and then we focus in on the educational aspect.
I think that was my follow-up question. I think we had a little conversation last week. But is some of this be helped with this new student support coordinator to maybe contact parents, be on that,
have clarity in the
get them in?
Yes, because right now we're having a difficult time with that.
Okay. And now, once this position is filled, do you feel that RPA is in need of some more SACs to, one, start on the social emotional needs before the academics to follow?
The type of student that's being referred to RPA is mostly social emotional now. Before, 2–3 years ago, it was overage unaccredited, but now we're going through a phase where we're weeding out the overage unaccredited because those students their needs are being met, And now we're asked to take on more social emotional students. So yes, in short, I know it's a long-winded answer. In short, yes, we could use additional.
Do you
support.
find maybe those 2 additional or 1 more additional, maybe a student support coordinator and a SAC? I mean, how necessary right now is your office paraprofessional or the 2-3 lead teachers in comparison to the social emotional that you need in place right now?
We don't have an office para at all. That's why I'm asking
Okay.
for one.
That's what this says. That was kind of.
So the student support coordinator was requested by Mr. Carrera. It's not in the budget, it's on the
Wish list.
the wish list that we have.
Okay.
But if it's a position that we could look at later on down the road, it would be in our best interest to look for another student investment counselor or liaison support academy.
But no need right now.
The need is not a high, it's going to be a priority down the road, but not right now.
Josh?
In regards to the yellow students you have, the numbers jumping up 50%. So you're going to have 1 full-time yellow instructor now, right? In hopes that some of the paras coming on board are bilingual and they can help facilitate instruction with that 1 instructor. But I mean, looking at those statistics, I'm thinking that moving forward, you're probably getting more support in the yellow area. I think the way the school's set up now, maybe all 38 students aren't in there at the same time.
That's correct.
So that person's not necessarily overwhelmed.
No.
But I can see in the future that she'll be a good need.
As time goes on, the numbers of L students, of ASL students are increasing in the district, and that means that somewhere along the line, we'll be increasing our numbers and doing that support.
So we'll come to, if the need comes up that we need additional support, we will come back to the request.
Thank you, I yield.
So I looked in a couple of the items, and there's things in here about Evolve, which is the grant, I believe that's the grant-funded positions. Are they funded at all next year? Where is that process at?
The funding for that staff, for that particular staff will come from the grant. So if we are awarded the grant again, any additional staffing will come from that grant.
And what's the timeline on that?
I believe we should know somewhere around April.
Usually it's not.
Yeah, April.
So are we going to know that before the budget's official?
We should.
Before we vote on the budget? The only reason why I'm saying is if positions are there and then there's no grant funding, then what do we do? So that would be a problem.
And these positions currently are in the budget. These positions are currently. Everything you see here.
Yeah. No, I get it. But there's things like that.
There are additional
looking
things.
for additions in Evolve, or there's people that were in there but they did other positions. My only point I want to make is about the administrative structure over there. So it looks to me like you have a principal, 2 vice principals, and 2 department heads for a total of 5.
I have 1 department head. Oh, I'm sorry, 2. That's right.
So you have 5 total.
5 total.
So if I'm looking from 1 year to the next, however this shakes out with a grant, with this and that, you should still be at 5 for the regular school, not counting the Evolve. And I think that a place with the needs that you have down there, you need that many. You probably need more administrators than that. But at the same time, it shouldn't go backwards in my view. So I would like to just hold that number of 5 as we go forward. We do have some positions that we're not on, and I agree with what Mr. Almeida said. The support coordinator was requested but not in, and there was a few other positions. I think a couple will Evolve. We can always adjust that as your numbers are going to go up and down. But my main point is just I think you need to be at 5 administrators when the dust settles, regardless of how you call. So with that, I yield. Thank you.
Anything further? Thank you, Mr. Correa.
Thank you.
Next up, Principal of EMC Griffin High School, Malcolm Harris. Go ahead.
Good evening. Before you on Durkee's proposed budget, 9 new positions green. I'll speak to each of those. 5 of them being instructional support liaisons. If we look at the area of academic intervention, that's the biggest area of need in terms of getting systems up and running at Durkee High School. Not only are we looking at it for of the structure of the schedule and the intervention periods, but personnel as well. Proposing an instructional support liaison for each of the four academic areas, and then as well as the CTE area, because it's certainly a very growing program when we look at especially instructional craft. These liaisons, when we're talking about the core academics, spend a lot of time figuring out how to provide students with test accommodations that they need by way of IEP, and then pulling teachers, because there aren't other bodies to do that. So that would be a big piece of what they do, but beyond that, it would be pushing into classrooms that need extra support, and working with small groups of students to provide targeted interventions. When I move on to the area of social emotional supports, we're asking for one more adjustment counselor, and this would give each grade level the same structure in terms of guidance and adjustment counselors. So if this position were put into the budget, we would now have 2 adjustment counselors for each grade level. There's a
Total of 9.
total right now is
Sorry. It's 8 right now, I'm gonna make it 9.
yeah, there's 8.
Yeah,
Cluster coordinator is a position that Mr. Loesch brought forward in the job description, and it was approved. This would be a boots on the ground administrator working directly with our ASD bridge and community-based populations. A lot of management that happens throughout the day. Kids transitioning to and from classes, the busing needs, monitoring in the cafeteria. That's a very high need area, and a lot of tasks on a daily basis, as well as monitoring staff. There's a lot of staff in that program, in those 3 programs, when you consider the number of paraprofessionals that need to be in some of the rooms, particularly the one-on-ones, the medical paras. So there's a lot of movement, and so it needs some additional oversight. We look at additional supports. We're asking for another librarian media specialist. Dr. Malone's vision is that we need a librarian for the district eventually, and Durfee. We got to be ready for our new facility. The library we have is going to be amazing, and I want to hit the ground running. So I'm pleased with the fact that we have a librarian. We didn't have one for about 5 years. Neil's been on board for 3 years, and things move along nicely, and now it's time to take it to the next level with that part of the operation. Like Mr. Career, we're asking for an office para. We don't have an office para in the main office right now. I have one clerk in the main office, and given what she's charged with each day, there's a lot of support. We'd be looking for that office para, not only to pick up some of the responsibilities within the main office, but also assist in the attendance outreach efforts that go on every day. So we're talking at Durfee High School, what's on the budget right now would be those 9 positions.
Just quickly, you have one already, right, the para school office?
I have one right now in the registrar's office, again, doing a lot of the transcript and walking into the transcript, and then they also, part of what they oversee is coordinating outside counselors that come in and access space. It's staggering the number of counselors coming into the building on a daily basis, and just being able to make sure the schedule runs smoothly and having the space and help. She picks up a lot of the slack.
Basically shared, like a para that's shared, or for the main office, just handle them?
No, that para, you're talking about
Yes.
on-site or?
Oh, so now the new one, sorry, I jumped to
New one would be
the
for the main office.
main office, okay. Strictly main office. Yes, sorry.
Well, so as far as the instructional support liaisons are concerned, are those certification required positions?
No.
So that could be like for maybe a college kid that wants a part-time job, or
These are full-time slots. The ideal would be someone considering or looking at a teaching career, and someone that has a baccalaureate degree but doesn't have the teaching certification, wants to get in. So someone that we're looking at that would have a higher skill set than para, but not yet a teacher.
And so they would work directly with the teacher in that room, so the teacher can still assist the small group process, as explained. Okay, so you feel like that would be a real help in certain classrooms. Would they be also diverse languages?
We always have an eye on that when we're looking at talent and interviewing people. We want the best person for the job, but if they have the additional skill of language capacity, that helps.
Certainly. Now coming down to the cluster coordinator, you described that very, very well, that there's a lot of movement within the school day with all these different programs. So, and who would the cluster coordinator report to? Would it be you or Dr. or Michael Roche?
Both of us.
Both of us.
Yep.
Yeah, because as principal of the school and seeing the operations day to day, you see this as something that's going to help coordinate the operations and the day-to-day service of the school. Yeah, I know it myself, so I think that's a really good. I'm very happy to see that as a proposal. Thank you for that. I yield.
Oh, sure. So, Matt, just a couple quick things. On the math interventionist coach, reading the responsibilities, and it says I'm just curious, interventions provided by classroom teachers interrupt grade level curricular delivery. Now, can you be a little bit more specific about that?
Those two positions are on the wish list, or the B list, let's say.
Okay. Well, say
sure,
they're on the wish list, but you end up getting them. Now, what does that mean?
Okay, so if I'm struggling with math and the solution is to pull me out of math to go get some tutoring, I'm not in class that day learning what's going on. And so if we provide intervention at the cost of instruction at the grade level curriculum, you're furthering the problem rather than catching the student up. So the intervention needs to be provided at a time that's not during the core. That's why we're looking, hopefully, to have some flexibility on schedule. We're sitting at more and more as it's called the wind block, what I need. We're hoping that we can arrive on a schedule next year for Durfee that includes a strategy like that. So that's a time where the period sits outside of the schedule, let's say. It's in the schedule, but it's not interrupting math, science, English. It's not even interrupting electives. If a student needs intervention, they go for intervention during that period. If the student's in good academic standing and doesn't need intervention, then they go for some extension. Maybe they're going to go explore a topic that they have a passion about, or do something a little more flexible, a little more creative, or something activity-based.
The other thing in my last one is in the next paragraph in the social emotional sports. And I get this in the wish list, but I wanted to talk to you about the in-school suspension. You don't have that.
Right.
I'm just curious. What's the bar as far as if you say you end up getting in-school suspension, you start doing that? What would cause them to have in school as opposed to out of school? What's the penalties? What would they do to deserve out of school suspension, but then they would have in-school suspension?
That's a good question. It's been probably 10, 15 years since we've had in-school suspension, so I really can't say this.
But also, too, do you think in-school suspension is the way to go?
Well, what we hear is that if you give a kid out of school suspension, you just give them the day off, and parents confirm it, and some students don't care that they're going to be suspended. Right? That's a separate issue. We use suspension as a last resort. Right? Obviously, if it's something with violence, drugs, something over the top, and something you're going to get arrested for out in the community, well, then you're probably going to be suspended for it. In-school suspension, I see it used as a tool for lower-level chronic behavior that all other avenues haven't found any leverage with it. So I don't want this to be a holding tank that just gets us sitting there quiet. If you're in school suspension, you're going to get engaged about why you're there, okay? And you're going to have some kind of conversation, and hopefully some kind of restorative effort's going to happen where you're going to be returned to a classroom the next day. I see the in-school suspension room as an opportunity for maybe kind of like a portion of your day that you spend there, right? So something just happened, you're not going home, but you're not going back to class, you're going to spend some time here to process. I don't have a clear list that I can tell you,
Yeah.
this is what you're gonna do, and that's what you'll end up with school suspension.
Well, I kind of think that in-school suspension is definitely the way to go. I did my practicum at New Bedford High, and they had it, in-school suspension. It seemed to work. Instead of, like you said, sending them home, they do consider it a day off. I mean,
It's still, so in terms of DESI, they look at in-school suspension and out-of-school suspension as the same thing. So if you're in-school suspension, you are suspended from school. So when they look at their numbers, look at accountability, it's in the same pot.
what would it take for you to decide, and working together with everybody involved in that decision making, what do you foresee? Do you see it happening soon, in-school suspension, or, I know it's
Depends on the
here.
budget, so that's
No,
unlikely.
I understand that, but I mean, if you think it's that important, I personally do. I think in-school suspension definitely works. And if we can, come through with the funding for that, for the new school, I think that it would be probably a good step in the right direction. I'm just definitely for that. So I'm just, whenever that might come up again, I'll definitely be
It's an
ready to approve
important
that.
piece. It's a tool, another tool for the grade officers. If we land on a budget that doesn't include this, then there's other things I can do within the budget I already have. If it needs shifted out, then I would come back to you and ask for a conversion.
All right, well, just want to say keep up the great work. Both of you have a very tough, difficult job each day. I'm glad you guys are on the job. Thank you.
I love my job.
So the list that we have here, were these decisions made on your own value judgments with your team of what is drawn on, what's in the budget versus Plan B or whatever we call the wishes?
In terms of what I put forward,
Yeah, so you put forward 10 things, let's say, and then we ended up landing on 6 of them in the budget, 4 on the wish list. Were you and your team making that decision?
it was a collaboration between Central and my team prioritizing, okay, if you couldn't do all of it, where would you land?
So you would land on what's here?
What's that?
You would land on what is not in versus what's in, is what I'm saying.
Well, I would land on what's not in.
No, you would land on what this decision is. So, like when you were talking about the literacy intervention coach, the math intervention coach, it seemed, just my opinion, it seemed like you were passionate about that, making a big difference to the needs of the school. Amongst a lot of things, but it's on the wish list, not here. And I'm just assuming that you chose to have these other pieces instead of those.
In a prioritized list, yes, and the thinking, Mr. Aguiar, is if I'm looking at the entire list, and we're looking at different job categories, there's definitely different salary rates here. If we're looking at the two interventions coach at a similar salary level as the adjustment council and the cluster coordinator, if I had to choose right now, if I said, all right, pick 2 of those 4, those are the 2 I would pick. The SAC.
I hear what you're saying, but we're supposed to look at it as a whole budget to say what's the best thing. So you don't have any other way to say, I want to convert something else. You're okay with this, basically.
I want it all, right?
Okay.
But in a prioritized way, I am okay with what's here.
I mean, you need help, and obviously these are some good things. My personal opinion is I've asked at multiple meetings across this entire school year about in-school suspension. And I've consistently, like every other member of this committee, has been told that every principal has been given support over the last year to make an in-school suspension room in however they would like. I'd still like to get a copy of that because every single person that comes before us says, mostly, I don't have them. I think a school your size needs to have that other tool in the toolbox of an in-school suspension room, whether it's just, like you said, kids not going home yet, they're investigating, seeing what's going on. You need a place for them to go and get something done, to whether it be correct their behavior, think about it a little more. So, I just think an in-school suspension is needed, and I would even say to you, I would go for that right now, because you need that in a place that big. You need that resource, in my opinion. So when I saw that on the wish list, my personal opinion would be that should come forward. You also talked about a librarian. It's not on here, but I think you said it was district librarian, is that, did I get
So
that right?
there's an additional librarian on the budget, and Kevin can help me out there.
So the vision is that the district will have a librarian, and the new person, the new FTE that's in here will be the new person, Jeremy, so to speak. So they're gonna help support the libraries down at the middle school with new technology and that kind of stuff that supports the library. So that's
So, I'm not so sure I agree with that, but if that's the case, that person shouldn't be on his budget. That should be under a district line. If it's a district head librarian, or based on what you're just saying, that shouldn't be in Durfee's budget. Because it looks like they have 2 people now, if you're looking at the additions.
they're gonna be helping.
Truth in advertising, I would say if it's a district position, they should be focused on, it should be a district-wide position. This makes it look like as if he's got extra positions that are not necessarily, yeah, they're gonna be working with Durfee. If I look at a value judgment, like, the new school's not gonna open until another year, right? So if I was looking at value judgments, the pieces that Mr. Damaris just spoke eloquently about that are on the B sheet, maybe we wait another year until the new Durfee opens, if that's the case, and put some of these other priorities in order. You know, sounds good, but this guy needs some help now, not a librarian that when we open the new. So I would look at that. And the only other question I had was on I said this before at one of the meetings about the school adjustment counselors, and I see there's 9. Mr. Hart mentioned it. There's going to be 9. But if we're saying we need 1 to get to 8, but we're really going to have 9, you understand my dilemma. Maybe that's a Mr. Lowe's question. School adjustment council at Durfee. So we look in Durfee's budget. It says special ed, right? School adjustment council, bridge special ed, which is the reason why I'm asking you. So that whole position comes out of your budget?
To support them, yes, for that specific position, yes. To
But
support
what do they do? Are they not included in the Durfee?
in their staffing.
Does that
pattern.
position work for you or does it work for him?
Works for that.
So you're gonna need 9. All
9 would give me 2 at each grade level, and then the 1 that's in the bridge.
I just think I support the school adjustment council, don't get me wrong. But at some point, we just need to make sure we're on the same page with all of those things. Those programs are important to have a person, the cluster coordinator. Couldn't agree more. You need that. So I do think you got a lot of stuff in here, but you definitely have needs. So I'm willing to support it. And if you come back with an ISS teacher, I'll play right now. Figure them out. Are you?
Any further? Thank you, Mr. Damaris. The budget presentation by the departments is not tonight. So the budget is not tonight. So anybody have any new business to come before the finance committee meeting? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
Deb, call the roll, please.
Mr. Agia?
Yes.
Mr. Costa?
Yeah.
Mr. Hawk?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Mr. Corey?
Yes.
Ms. Larrabee? Yes. Mayor Coogan?